Broadcasting Tuesday. It's time to rise and shine, my little coconuts. Music provided thanks to Little King. Thank you, Little King. That nice playlist you share with me. Good morning, Uncle Leo. How are you? So, meteorology, in the science that deals with the atmosphere and related phenomena, and weather is defined as the state of the atmosphere, at a given time and place with respect, to variables such as temperature, moisture, wind, velocity, and barometric pressure. So, there's a wide variety of technological instruments and observing instruments, that measure weather. And these include, that I always mess up on this one. So we have anemometers, and they're for measuring the velocity of wind. We have barometers for measuring pressure, temperature, right? And then we have like the rain gauges, that measure precipitation. Well, people, they've always been interested in the weather, because the weather plays such a big part, in our daily lives, And today, in this age that we're in, that we live in today, meteorologists, with the modern equipment, they can safely predict the weather, from day to day, and many times forecast the weather 5 days in advance. But never mind. But it's helpful, to make our those important things that we want to do throughout the day. I mean, we don't have to depend on the aches and the pains in Uncle Henry's right knee joint anymore. We have sophisticated ways, telling what the weather's going to do. Of course, one of the best ways to get rain is to wash your car. It'll almost certainly rain. Now, the people who lived when the Lord was here on earth, they were as dependent on the weather as we are today, because the weather was something they were familiar with. He chose to use the weather, as a teaching tool. But yes. Good morning, Paul Johnstone. Nice to see you over there in YouTube land. Hope you're doing well, brother. Yeah. All right. So there's two things in this life that we'll never know the answer to. We do not know the day and the hour that we're going to die. And we do not know the day and the hour that the Lord will return for his church. And the reason we don't know either one of these is obvious. If people knew the answer to these two things, they live their life in sin, and in their last few hours, they turn to the Lord. So these are two things, and we can that it won't be long. And this is why he gave them the parable of the weather. We can look at certain conditions and know if rain is coming or not, right? So in Luke 12:54 and 55, we read, and he said also to the people, When you see a cloud rise out of the west, straight away, you say, there cometh a shower. And so it is. And when you say the south wind, when you see the south wind blow, you say, there will be heat, and it comes to pass. So how good are you at reading signs? I mean, basically, there are some signs that are a good indication that it will not be long before, Christ returns for his bride. So let's look at some of the signs. But before we do, we need to consider, this, we have these sign seekers. The people back in Jesus' day, like many today, they didn't believe that Jesus of Nazareth was the Messiah. They were always wanting him to show them a sign, to prove he was who he said he was. And it was not because they were dumb. It was because, they didn't want to believe. So in this parable, you can see the Lord's displeasure with them. I mean, look at verses 56 and 57. I mean, we read, you hypocrites, you can discern the face of the sky and of the earth, but how is it that you don't discern this time? And why even of yourselves judge you not what, is right? So the Lord referred to them as hypocrites. And these are sign seekers. No one, including the Lord, is going to convince them to be believers. So if the Lord had given them one sign, they would have demanded a bigger one. Basically, they're practical atheists. And there's not that much difference between them and an atheist. A man called in to Sean Hannity's radio talk show back in 2002. And Sean had asked him, do you believe in God? And he said no. And he said that he was an atheist. And Sean then proceeded to ask him how all these things we can see with our eyes, come into existence. And the man said, that it all came about through the process of evolution. And Sean then asked him, where evolution came from. And the man said, from the molecules. And then Sean asked him, where did the molecules come from? And the man said, from the Big Bang Theory. So the man was getting, exasperated with Sean because, he began to feel like a fool believing the way he did. And finally, Sean explained to him that, if he would trace the whole evolutionary process backwards, then he would eventually have to conclude that something, basically, came from nothing. And he said, only God can create something from nothing. And, I mean, since the days of Christ, people have not changed a great deal. I mean, for example, during the days of Christ, people were more interested in the signs than they were in what he was teaching. And these sign seekers came to him one day in Matthew 12, 38 and 40, or 38 through 40, and here's what we read. It says, then certain of the scribes and of the Pharisees answered, saying, Master, we would see a sign from thee. But he answered and he said to them, an evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and there shall be no sign given to it, but the sign of the prophet Jonas. So shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So later on in Matthew 16, 1-4, we read, the Pharisees also with the Sadducees came and tempting desired him that he would show them a sign from heaven. And he answered and he said to them, when it's evening, you say, it will be fair weather. Excuse me, my notes are crappy. For the sky is red. In the morning, it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowering. O ye hypocrites, you can discern the face of the sky, but can you not discern signs of the times? And then when the prophet Jonas, and he left them and departed. And so, the Lord referred to these sign seekers as hypocrites. So in John 4:48, we read this, Then said Jesus unto them, "See signs and wonders you will not believe." In other words, he had to buy their faith with signs and wonders. You know, I mean, they thought, of the Christian life, as a television program called, remember that show? Remember that show, Let's Make a Deal? They thought of it, that is, Lord, you show me something great and I'll believe in you. So the sign seekers are always looking for a sign, but the Lord did not play this game with anyone. You know, I mean, a total stranger can come to town and he may have buried, 29 times. And he may, owe everybody in his hometown and have a jail record as long as his arm. But he can advertise signs and wonders each night. And the people will flock out to the meeting. By thousands. Isn't that amazing? They will begin to make excuses for why they have to leave. People are interested in signs and supernatural phenomena than they are in the Word of God. I mean, these sign seekers remind us of a woman, who marry a man for his money, not because they believe in him and love him, for what he is. I mean, God never called us to be sign seekers, but he has called us to be this, sign seekers. I mean, S-O-N. I mean, the Lord is pleased when we who believe in him want to see him. So we should never feel bad and think, that it's wrong. I like the song that says it this way: I want to see him and look upon his face. I mean, we are looking for him to return. We can look, the signs that he help that will not long return. Look at Matthew 24 and we read left here one stone upon another, they shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came, to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the world?" And Jesus answered and said to them, "Take heed that no man deceive you." Notice the Lord was telling us that one of the things that we have to watch, before he returns, for his bride, is a climate of deception. He said, "I'm going to see you." And it can truly be said that this is the age of deception. I mean, we constantly hear of politicians who are deceiving, their constituents, that place them in office. Doctors who are deceiving the insurance companies, claiming that they have done things that they've never done, driving our insurance rates higher and higher. We see this happening on a daily basis. It's really sick the way people are, And then we have CEOs of large corporations who are deceiving the shareholders of these companies and cheating them out of billions of dollars. And if all this deception wasn't bad enough, the biggest deception of all is found in religion. I mean, notice that the Lord shows us some of the signs that will precede his coming. The predicted signs, look at Matthew 24, 5-8. "For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And you'll hear of wars and rumors of wars, and see that you won't be troubled, and all these things must come to pass." But the end is not yet. Nation will rise against nation, kingdom against them, and famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. So the Bible tells us that all these are the beginning of sorrows that will precede the other signs. So these are the signs before the Lord returns for his church. And the signs that will follow, will be those that take place after, I'm a rapture person, so I believe after the rapture. Yep. So, have you noticed? I'm sure everybody's seen um, sheep and all kinds of animals that are just circling, right? They're just going in circle, 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 circle. Well, do you know that before the flood came, after had the ark built, when the animals came and took that ark and took the word to go in the ark. Crazy, circling and circling and circling. Do you think maybe they're not telling us it's a sign of the times? Maybe the animals are telling us it's a sign? I'm just wondering. Yeah, somebody had brought that to my attention the other day. I can't remember who told me, but I found it to be, a really a wise thing to say. You know. So we'll also have the persecution signs. In Matthew 24, the Lord makes a distinction. You know, we've predicted signs, right? And that'll take place before the rapture of the church. So let's look at these persecution signs. Matthew 24, the Lord makes a distinction between the church age signs and tribulation signs. Now the Lord begins to speak, of the time of tribulation, the organization of the church spirit, as some like to speak to, of it. And the Bible divides the world today into three groups of people: the Jews, the Gentiles, and basically the bride of Christ. That's 1 Corinthians 10:32. In this age, God is calling out a people, to His name for both Jews and Gentiles to compose the third group, the church. In this world, but I fully give a little different in there. The bride, the left behind church, the Jewish people. Okay. So basically, the bride will be taken out of this world at the time of the rapture. And the Great Tribulation will begin. I believe it speaks. I love my internet. It's just. False prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. And then shall the end come. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let him which is on the housetop not come down beneath the house, neither let him which is in a field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall the great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Then, if any man shall say unto you. Lo, here is Christ. He shall show great signs and wonders, and so forth. Excuse me. If it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, behold, he's in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers. Believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will be the eagles gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in the heavens clouds. And then shall direct from the four winds, from one end of to the other. Now learn a parable of the fig trees. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. So likewise, when you see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say to you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. These signs are known as the tribulation period. So, the signs of the Lord's of, before the rapture will have to be convinced the hard way when these other signs begin to occur. You know. So which one are you? Are you a sign seeker or are you a sun seeker? You know? Mm-hmm. What happened to my fan? I guess my internet went on for a second. Oh, excuse me. It's about my bedtime, y'all. From one of my pastors ain't long to crash. Jesus coming for only devoted ones that's in the church. If truth be told, so many men should be concerned. Cause the life we live for Jesus Christ can be absurd. You say God knows your heart, but your heart's still wicked ways. In order for us to be renewed, we do what the Bible says. I can't be a hypocrite, I'm lost, I need ways. But I know who leave the 99 for the one he needs to save. But I can't be passive, I can't be the one that pray. Step up to the match, lift my hands and give him praise. Some people gaze as they came and now you've changed it. Stuck in those kitchen with a Ramsey but not like Gordon. They didn't need no football. Step in the building, be some school.
the line, no real one worth it. Chapter, think flat, like a thief in the night. There's no exceptions, I'll get left if I don't move right. Time is ticking, I've got to reach my final form. Christ's death can't be in vain for us. He bore the crown of thorns. Go share the gospel like Luke, but go be far from born. God won't be my spirit. When the word has been reborn, I ain't tryna let God cut his ties with me just like umbilical cords. Go run this race with faith, loyalty and sing my soul. Chapter, team flat, like a thief in the night. There's no exceptions, I'll get left if I don't move right. Time is ticking, I've got to reach my final form. Christ's death can't be in vain for us. He bore the crown of thorns. Go share the gospel like Luke, but go be far from born. God won't feed my spirit. When the work has been reborn, I ain't tryna let God cut his ties with me just like umbilical cords. Go run this race with faith, don't sing my sword.
That song was called Lukewarm. It's one of the ones that Little King shared with me. Okay, so here's the last of this. It's Luke 21, 29, 33. So the Lord taught many parables, but so in order to do this, you generally have to read the verses that precede the parable he spoke. For example, following Jesus' comments after the widow gave her 2 small coins in the temple, he teaches about the destruction of the temple. And then coming up at the end of the age, we look at Luke 21, 7 to 28, we read, and they asked him, saying, Master, but when shall these things be? I've got the hiccups now. When shall these things be? And what sign will there be when these things shall come pass? And he said, take heed, that you don't be deceived, because many people come on my name saying I'm Christ. And the time draws near. So he says, go ye therefore to them. But when ye shall hear of the wars and commotions, be not terrified. For these things must first come to pass. But the end is not by and by. And then said he unto them, nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And great earthquakes, shall be in diverse places, and famines and pestilences and fearful sights. And great signs will be there from heaven. But before all these, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and into prisons, being brought before the kings and rulers for my name's sake. And it shall turn to you for a testimony. Settle it therefore in your hearts, not to meditate before what you'll say or what you'll answer. For I'll give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries will not be able to gainsay nor resist. And you'll be betrayed both by parents and brother men for my name's sake. But there shall not come a hair of your head perish. In your patience possess you your souls. And when you will see Jerusalem compassed with armies, and know that the desolation thereof is nigh, then let them which are in Judea flee to mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in countries either thereto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are withheld, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon the people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into the nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity. The sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for the Son of Man coming in clouds with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, my brethren, then look up and lift up your heads. Your redemption draweth nigh. So as we read about these signs, that would precede this coming, some might be saying these aren't really signs because the things he mentions are things that have occurred since mankind has been on earth. Okay, this is true. It is true. Okay. But the Lord, he was stating that before the end of the age, as we know it to be, the things he talks about will be, of a greater magnitude than ever before. So, hey, Humble, how you doing, sweet sister? Good to see you. All right. So, we have to remember that it was Jewish disciples who asked the question. He's responding to their question in verse 7. When shall these things be? So the things he talks to them about apply to them, okay? So why is it important that we recognize that? Well, because some of the signs take place during the tribulation period. Since the Jews rejected Christ, they will be here during the tribulation period to witness these things. I fully believe that these books have been opened up. The book of Luke is for the bride. The book of Matthew is for the Jews. And it's Luke, Matthew, Mark. The book of Mark is for the left behind church. So because, you find a lot of people that say, oh, well, these books, they all contradict themselves. But no, if you look at it like they're speaking to separate groups of people, then no, there's no contradiction. Because the message is for each of these groups of individuals, okay? So before the Lord comes back to set up his kingdom of God, to illustrate how, they might know what the end of the age is, the Lord spoke to them using the parable of the fig tree. So what can a fig tree teach us about the end of the age? Well, figs are something that we do not hear, a lot about today. But during the days of Christ, the fig tree was a common and important source of food for the Jews. So why did the Lord choose the fig tree? Well, because not only the fig tree, but all trees can tell you a great deal, about when autumn and spring are coming. And many believe that the fig tree represents Israel. And that's if you keep an eye on Israel, though you will not know the precise time the Lord is coming to set up his kingdom, you will have some idea. For example, when the Lord was here on earth, a farmer, could look at the fig tree and determine when autumn or spring was near. And as we look, at these things that the Lord said, would be signs, we also know that the Lord's coming is very soon. So they were standing in the temple or near the temple when someone asked him what would be the sign of his coming. So men and women from all over came to admire, this beautiful temple. You can look at verse 20, look at 21, 5 through 6, and we read, and some spake of the temple, how it was adorned with goodly stones and gifts. He said, as for these things which ye behold, the days will come in which there shall not be one stone upon another. They shall not be thrown down. So it's a common belief that the temple was so marvelously constructed that it would last until doomsday. And the temple, was many times larger than any building in Galilee. It was immense and glorious, a tremendous symbol of national pride. And these country bumpkins from Galilee couldn't help but be impressed. I mean, the perspective of magnitude of the temple, we would have to compare it, to the Twin Towers that once existed in New York City. For example, we're told Tower 1 was completed in 1972 and Tower 2 was completed in 1973. And the cost for those two towers was $400 million. And they were 110 stories high. The World Trade Center 1 was 1,368, and the World Trade Center 2 was 1,360. 2, feet high. So, I mean, that was constructed by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey in the early 1970s. And the World Trade Center towers, they were, for their time, the best known examples of tube buildings. And the closely spaced columns and beams in each tower formed a steel tube that together with an internal core withstood the tremendous wind loads, that affect buildings tall. And speaking of wind, you hear those wind chimes out there going nuts? Got some tornado wind chimes going on this morning. Okay, but aside from withstanding enormous wind loads, the World Trade Center towers, they were also constructed to withstand settlement loads. Because the towers were built on 6 acres of landfill, the foundation of each tower had to extend more than 70 feet below the ground level to rest on solid bedrock. So each tower, had 104 passenger elevators, 21,800 windows, and roughly an acre of rentable space on each floor. And from the observation deck on 2 World Trade Center, it was possible to see 45 miles in every direction. And each tower swayed approximately 3 feet from the true center in strong windstorms. I mean, they were built to last. So yeah, I'm not even going to go there because people are going to say that, I'm a conspiracy theorist. We won't go there. So, anyway, so let's see. So anyway, but the Lord shocked them when he said in Luke 21:6, "As for these things which ye behold, the days will come in which there shall not be left one stone upon another, and there shall not be thrown down." So we look at the words "thrown down," and it literally means destroyed, demolished, or dismantled. And this had to be a shock, for them to hear the Lord say this. I mean, can you imagine someone standing before the Twin Towers, before they were demolished, saying, "These towers are going to come crashing down"? If someone said that, no one would have believed them. And, while they were, admiring the beautiful temple, they asked the Lord what would be the sign of his return. In other words, the Lord's saying, you're mistaken about the temple, but you do not need to be mistaken about the coming of Christ. I mean, he gave them some signs that would indicate when the coming of the Lord, might take place. So actually, we live in a society, that have more false messiahs than any generation that's ever lived. I mean, there were false messiahs in his day, and totally, there are those who claim supernatural power. Although they talk a great deal about Jesus, they move themselves into his place and take to themselves glory that should be his. And I think, there's quite a few false Christs walking about, and certainly false religions abound. So these messiahs are literally worshipped and adored. There's widow women who, as soon as they, get their retirement checks, they send a substantial amount, to these little gods that they worship. And there's people who'll sell everything they have to give to these little gods. People absolutely, So, a good example is Benny Hinn. Anyone who knows anything about the Bible knows this man has set himself up as a god to be worshipped. He will take a text and read it, and then we'll walk around the next 30 or 45 minutes giving you the impression that he, is the modern day Jesus, or that God's working through him. I mean, there's times that he wouldn't even bother to read a scripture. He would just strut around telling everyone how great he is, or he'd tell people what they wanted to hear and how God performs major miracles through him each day, you know. So there's more false messiahs than ever before in the history of mankind. So now we have national signs. So if we look at verses 9 and 10, we read, "But ye shall hear of wars and commotions. Be not terrified, for these things must first come to pass. But the end is not, by and by. Then, said he unto them, nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom." So this is a sign for sure, that the Lord's coming cannot be long. There have always been wars since mankind has been on this planet, but never have we ever, had such an escalation of nations fighting each other. And then we have natural signs. So when you look at verse 11, we read, "And great earthquakes will be in diverse places, and famines and pestilences, and fearful sights and great signs shall there be from heaven." Did you know earthquakes each day, or about 20 a year? And if you find this staggering, we're told that actually several million earthquakes occur annually, many too small to be located. But, when we get to Revelation, this is when the big earthquakes will take place. Kind of like the one that just happened in Turkey. I'm just saying, "Hey, LJ, how you doing, babe?" So, we also have opposition signs. So if you look at Luke 21, 12, 13, we read, "But before all these things, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and into prisons, being brought before the kings and the rulers for their name's sake. And it shall turn to you, for testimony." Watch, we watch for false Christ, signs, national signs, natural signs, opposition signs, and then military signs. Well, I think we've got a lot of stuff going on right now. I've been screaming from the rooftops about this guy over there in Israel, Rob Shlomo. They call him the Yanuka or Yanuka. They've named him as their Messiah, and he's Elijah. And we know, according to our faith, to the word, that John the Baptist preceded Jesus. So who is exactly is Elijah going to precede? I'm just wondering, who does Elijah precede? And Humble, if you haven't heard about Rob Shlomo, let me tell you a little bit about this guy. Okay, he was born in Israel. He's half Muslim, or half, his family. One of them was Islam or Muslim, and one of them was Jewish. His grandfather. So he was born half and half, and then whenever, and one is from Israel. So Assyria was part of the ancient empire, the ancient Roman Empire. So we know our Antichrist will be known as the Assyrian, right? So that check, okay? So his dad was really sickly when he was a little boy, really ill. So their family offered them a job over in Spain. So they moved over to Spain, and he grew up over there pretty much. By the age of 7, he knew the entire Torah in and out, inside and out, backwards and forwards. He knew it by heart. And he began to write Torah codes, and he also made music. He wrote songs. He still writes songs and sings music. He's really a timid, really shy guy. He's real quiet. He's about 30 something years old, about 32 years old, I think. He's married. And anyway, when he came to a certain age, they moved back over to Israel. And all the rabbis, the older, rabbis, they began, to really talk about this young man. And his popularity has increased so much now that the old rabbis, kiss his hand. They kiss his hand when he speaks on things about their nation, or when he speaks, scripture or whatever in the faith. Everything fills up the standing room only. I mean, people are standing, basically side by side, all crushed in. You hear this guy speak. And everybody goes after him and grabs after his clothes like they think he's Jesus. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. You can look up on the internet and look at videos. Um, this last holiday that they had, um, he, I shared it with LJ. She's seen it already. They made this video and they showed that they had like the sticks and they made a bonfire. All the Jewish people were like dancing around in a circle and singing and stuff. And so he went with his torch and he lit the bonfire. And after he lit the bonfire and the fire went up, this little white entity came out of the top of the fire and was dancing. It was the creepiest thing I've ever seen. It was really anything like it. I've never seen old men, these old rabbis just falling all over him, touching his clothes and kissing his hand and stuff. I mean, they've really made him out to be really somebody over there in Israel. So he's somebody that we really should be watching out for, you know, with these movers and shakers in the future, you know. And here's another thing: Netanyahu, right? He was president, and then somebody else took his place for 3.5 years. So we've got Israel over there crying that they don't want democracy because democracy has failed them. They want a king. So we have Israel crying out for a king, and now we've got Netanyahu back in office. So, are they going to declare Netanyahu as their king, And if they declare him as their king, I just wonder, what exactly is going to be his position, in all this stuff that's, coming. Because we see so many things, so many signs, so many things. I mean, everything the Bible says is happening. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, it's just, you can't deny. You can't deny all these things taking place. And I'm sure there's many scoffers who'll say, "Oh, well, these things have all taken place," But there's many things happening in the world that it just wasn't possible, for them to happen up until this time, in this day and age. So anyway. I've heard a lot of people say they believe our Antichrist is going to come out of Turkey. He's called the Assyrian, but I don't know at this point. And I hear people say, "Oh, well, it's probably going to be Prince Charles or Prince William." And Prince William has Islam, has Muslim heritage. A lot of people say that's not true. They say it's a falsity. But myself, where it said that Queen Elizabeth claimed her bloodline went back to Muhammad, and I looked up on a few different sites. One said it was true, one said it's false. So I'm not real sure about that. But I don't know. I'm not real sure. I mean, where's that going to lead us to? And then I look at Elon Musk and I think, well, who is this guy? How is he going to play out? In the day and age. I hear people talk about Trump and they talk about Jared Kushner. I heard people say that about Obama, but it was kind of revealed to me in my spirit that Obama, he's not the Antichrist. Obama's Beelzebub. He's the one that's over the satanic faction. He's the boss over the Satanists. That's who he is. So anyway, it's kind of I've been kind of trying to bring this back up, call this to people's attention as well. I told you about it, LJ. Back in 1991 when President Bush Sr. signed in and activated the Noahide laws. And then when Trump was president, he and Jared went back over to the Middle East and they signed off on the Noahide laws as well. And I have a lot of people say, well, the Noahide laws, they're not bad. Bull crap. Anybody who doesn't follow, worship and practice the way the Jewish people do, we're considered idolaters. We're considered idol worshippers and things of that nature. I don't know if that's going to include you guys with Islam, LJ. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. The other day I said it did, but I can't be clear on that. I really don't know. I was just upset, hoping that you guys wouldn't be in danger too. It's going to be a big war on their hands. If they try to come after us like that. I don't know. And then, yeah, everything's just falling into place. I'll just say that much. Because You know, and I know LJ, about the whole World Economic Forum, you know, and what they did. So in pretty much every area, they're always located right next to train tracks, you know. And you think a Walmart can be completely emptied out, and then you have an intake center, you know. And the whole thing about the land being toxic and the air being toxic, and then saying they have to evacuate from your area, you know. Boom to the Walmart intake centers, boom on the trains, and then to the 50 cities, you know. It makes me wonder. You know, it seems to me like somebody's trying to set off a whole bunch of stuff with trains and trying to point the finger at terrorism. You know, I brought that up the other day. We looked quite finished with saying that the terrorists are from within. You know, I'm not saying that they're from another country. You know, I'm saying they're from within. You know, like everything else that takes place, people just have to open their eyes and see. And you know, somebody else had said this, you guys. What if they try to play this out? What if they try to say, you know, with all these balloons and ships that they couldn't name, they didn't know what they were, yada yada. You know, what if they try to say this, you know, this type of scenario? Well, either we've got toxic fumes, you know, coming in. Everybody lock yourself in your houses, tape up your windows and doors so you don't breathe in, you know, all this toxicity. Or they say, there's aliens trying to invade our planet. You know, they tell people lock up in your houses and don't look out your windows or the aliens are going to get you. You know, I mean, those two scenarios can very well come about, you know. And, you know, they do it right when they see that sign of Son of Man coming in the clouds. You know, they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds, and then, you know, all these people wind up missing, and then they're like, well, what happened to all the people? And they wind up saying, oh, it was an alien invasion, you know, or some mess like that. Or those people, you know, didn't abide, and they went outside and they breathed lots of people. You know? I'm just saying, you know, those kind of scenarios can very well come to pass because people running this world now are just so ignorant. I mean, at least back in my day when they told a lie, you know, the people that comprised the lie were witty, you know, but the people nowadays are in charge of everything are just ignorant. They're just insane. I think they're just so evil and so, I don't know. You know, and you know, they used to try to hide things from us. Give me a second, you guys. All right, YouTube, I'm out of here. Y'all have a blessed day. And I'll catch you on the flip flop. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Love you. Bye.